What is it called when people like to have sex in costumes, in the animal costumes?
Cosplay.
There's a word for like, if you want to go fuck Mickey Mouse. Somebody dressed up like Mickey Mouse. I can't remember the name. Anyway, that could lead to that kind of questioning.
Is that something?
When were you at Disney and who were your sexual partners at Disney?
So I'm coming from genuine curiosity. Do you want to fuck Mickey Mouse?
I never wanted to fuck Mickey Mouse.
But now you're thinking about it.
I'm not thinking about fucking
Now
Mickey
you
Mouse.
are.
I swear that I'm not fucking about.
I think the
thinking
voice.
about fucking Mickey.
I think the voice would throw me off. The little. That's it. Take it. Like what if he was like? What if he's like? Take it, bitch. Like he was.
What if he's a receiver? What if he wanted to?
Oh yeah, give it to me.
Give it to me.
Give it to me good.
You are listening to The New Man, Beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Are you the best lover your partner's ever had? I mean, how could you ever be sure? What if they preferred having sex with someone else other than you? And is sex a place where you strive to prove that you're good enough? Today, we talk about feeling jealous about our partner's sexual history. We explore what drives that insecurity, how neediness is repulsive, and why trying to prove you're a rock star in bed is a big mistake. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
How is the love of my life?
Oh boy, pouring it on.
I'm pouring it on
Yeah,
by saying you're the love of my life.
yeah.
I say you're the love of my life a lot.
Do you?
Maybe not that much, but
Not
I
to
say I
me.
love you super bunches.
You do.
Often.
I appreciate that.
I love
We
you
say that
more
a lot.
every day.
I appreciate that. I like hearing that.
I do.
like saying it too.
It's true. I love you.
Isn't it
Super
funny how
much.
there's with some people it's really easy to say that, and with others it's like, oh, if I say I love you, it's gonna be really weird.
Like loaded.
Like
If you're dating for 2 weeks.
Or if
You're
the
talking
gr-
about that.
or like here's your order. I love you.
Here's your order. I love you. I know some people that would say that freely. I was in the car with our daughter and a friend, and I was asking her friend. She acknowledged that she's been dating a boy for 5 months.
Ooh.
She's in ninth grade now, and I asked. I was like, I have to know. Have you kissed him yet? And she said, no, we haven't done anything like that. And she said, but she was getting pressure from her friends 2 months in. She was getting pressure from her friends asking her why she hasn't said I love you yet.
Oh, yeah. That's a big deal. That love, or that romantic love versus I just love you and I love you. You're my friend, or you're my family, or that's always a little
sacred being on the planet.
But
kind
even
of thing.
then, like I know people that don't. I know a person he said his dad only told him once that he loved him.
I can't imagine that. That feels brutal.
So, all right, you want to jump in, or you got anything else you want to play with? You're like, I want to banter some more.
I was like, oh, that reminds me of a client. Like when we used to, one of the questions that we would have as like an assessment question for teenagers was we would ask, do your parents love you? And there would be kids just as a baseline assessment. Kids would be like that's a dumb question. Of course they love me.
Of course they love me.
And then there were other kids that would like burst into tears or like be really anxious and be like, not know.
I don't
really
think so.
Not know.
Yeah. I'm not going to crack a really inappropriate joke at
What would you say?
I don't know.
You can edit it out because I
I
want to know what
don't
the inappropriate joke is.
Oh, no.
Oh, come
I don't
on.
want to reveal my darkness.
Oh, it must be about like incest or
No.
something.
Jesus, there's yours.
Well, what would the joke be about that?
I just would be like, maybe you should try being a better kid.
Oh, that sounds right, cute. Yeah, I went way darker.
That's why they sent you to therapy. Is so you'd be a better kid and quit being such a pain in the ass.
That reminds me of when
Fix my kid.
when B was little And she'd draw a picture, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's great, baby." And you'd turn to me, and you'd be like, "This sucks."
That was
You can't draw for shit.
that was the joke. She's not supposed to. I think I put that in my book where she's terrible at drawing or something.
Oh, did you? I don't remember.
She's not supposed to be good.
That's right.
But it's funny. All right, we have a question today. So this comes from Ryan Gosling. He says I'm not that Ryan Gosling. He's an executive at a AI powered pickle jar factory. He says I'm in a relationship with someone. I think she might be the one.
Okay, go on, Ryan.
And she alludes to that she's dated in the past and she's been with other partners. And
Does Ryan identify as a male?
Yes.
Oh, so the one he thinks is the one alludes to having been with other partners.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And he's had other partners too, but when she talks about these other men, he gets really jealous, even though they're in the past.
So she just voluntarily brings up exes?
No, they're just like, oh, I dated a guy. We went to Cleveland,
Okay.
And I'm not going to shit on Cleveland. I spent 3 months there one weekend, and it was...
There's your... Okay.
Anyway, he says he's very jealous, and he can't quite wrap his head around why he's jealous of her past. And he kind of ruminates about it. He worries about her past in that regard, and he's kind of wondering what's going on there.
Do we know anything has he
says,
proposed
"Please help me out."
yet? Have they talked openly about being together long term?
Doesn't mention. Yeah, it feels like he says this feels like the one. Like he's really interested in her, and he's really
him being interested in her is different than them actually. They're actually talking about being together.
You know what? I'm going to have you call him.
Well,
I don't know. I don't have this information.
Okay.
He's at this pickle jar factory.
It can take the conversation in a little bit of a different direction. That's all.
It sounds like they're moving towards they're moving into a committed relationship, and he's worried about her past, and he doesn't understand why it's activating him.
Okay.
And it's starting to he says he's ruminating, and he also he makes comments, and she gets kind of flustered.
It's start to create.
Yeah, it's starting to kind of create some toxic stuff. So, yeah, what should I do? All right, that's a good question. This actually is very common, and I don't know if it's common with women, but I know it's very common with men. Mm-hmm. When I've asked you if you worry about my past, you're kind of a
you have
mutant.
Let me know.
You're kind of heartless.
I'm not. I just don't think it's a big deal. I don't care.
Okay, but I did ask you one day when we were on a walk, and I said, "What if I told you that I had a deeper emotional relationship with somebody?" Do you remember what you said then?
Yeah, where that bitch live.
Yeah. So suddenly it was something came up there.
Yeah. I remember you were
where that bitch lived. Like suddenly you lose your grammar.
You were trying to inside just to kind of give a little bit of context to that conversation. You had been very curious, more inquisitive about what is it about you, Alyson, that has you be so weird with not caring, because
right.
I care greatly on this topic. I want to know everything. And I kept saying, I don't know. I don't really know.
There's not a concern there. There's a curiosity, but there's not a ooh, this is, there's jealousy or something. It's not just about us. There's, I had a client that was really bent out of shape. His partner had been with a tantric, he said a tantric sexual master, and he was this guy that couldn't last more than a minute or something. He was daunting. Really deeply insecure about that. You described a situation with a client that you had where they almost broke up because of this conversation.
Absolutely.
Can you just describe a little bit about that?
Yeah. And in that case, they were serious with each other, and they were talking about being together long term. And they had already been together for like 3 or 4 years, and he kind of got on this sort of horse about wanting to know about her sexual and relational past. But he was coming at it.
She was like, check Pornhub. It's all right there.
Well, he was already in a state. This is how it was explained to me. He's somebody that can kind of perseverate on things. And so he was already in a little bit of a jacked up sort of fear. He approached her in a kind of interrogative way. He was already pretty on the he was on the offense with it. She immediately felt defensive, like it wasn't really a safe place to share. It wasn't genuine curiosity. He had kind of had an angle. So when he wanted to know, when he was coming at her in that way, she actually she said no. She would not share.
So I want to underline something. So you're saying that he was not just being curious, like, hey, I'm curious about your past, but it was more, you said an angle, but I'm hearing aggression. Like there's like, he was definitely, he was already loaded for bear, as they say. Like he was ready to have a fight. It was almost like he was trying to pick a fight. And she sensed that. So because she sensed that, he was already ready for essentially trying to pick a fight. Like he was coming at her in a state. He was already in a state. She dug her heels in, and she was like, I know I'm not going to share with you right now. Which only
And for him, it was like gasoline on a fire for him. He was already ready to go. And so then he started creating all of these stories about why she wouldn't share. He started slut shaming her. He made it about mistrust. That it just went into this huge thing as if she was having an affair on him presently. Mm. And they were talking about, he wanted to know her past 20, 30, 5 years ago. Mm. And so then she really dug her heels in and was like, you have no entitlement to my history, particularly if you're already going to come at me as if I've done something wrong presently.
Okay. So that's an example of it going off the rails, where his insecurity got the best of him, and where she might have been open to discussing her past, he was already in a state of insecurity that had turned into this kind of aggression, for lack of a better term. And the way that he was coming to her had her shut down even more, and then that put them on this downward spiral.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I want to just circle back to. I mean, it's, we do this. You do this with me. There's times where you want to know about my past, and yes, I can be flippant about it and be like, "What? Who cares?" And then there are times where you want to know, and there's just a flavor of how you're coming at me. It's not jealousy or anything. There's just a flavor that you come at me, and I notice I don't want to share.
It's not
anything.
Safe.
Just there's something about it that feels off. And then there's times where you've come at me with genuine curiosity, and I ask you why you want to know, and you're like, I want to know more about you and your experience of, like, I want to know you here. And that actually felt like a genuine invitation, like an opportunity for us to be closer. So how something is approached, I have learned through our interaction, because I don't really care about it's been fun to learn about your past, but I don't care about it in the way of like, I need to know.
There's just a middle school teacher and
the affair that you had,
the carnival,
and
the carnival,
the carnival,
incident.
The carnies,
yeah,
the carnies incident. So anyway, but you get my drift. Like there's a whole approach that can bring people closer together. And I think most people just get hung up in the sort of jealousy and not enoughness.
Okay. Well, before we're getting ahead of ourselves there, I'm curious. I know you can't speak for all women, but just from your experience, do women have issues with their partners here? Or is it around, because it seems like for men, it might be about the sex, and for women, it might be about the emotional intimacy. It'd be easier to kind of paint those two broad strokes. Is that fair in your experience?
Let's just first acknowledge, please, that I cannot speak for all women because I myself can feel like I'm an anomaly in a lot of ways.
But I mean, just
here.
if what you might hear from clients and friends.
Well, I can tell you that what I hear from clients is not it's not the emotional stuff of like, what if he had a deeper emotional connection with somebody?
Okay.
Generally speaking, the female clients that I work with, they're always substantive. Like they're the source of substantive emotional intelligence.
You got to put that in a language the rest of us can understand.
It's not an issue where they're not worried about if he was more emotionally intimate with somebody else. They're just not.
Are they worried about that he might have had more fun sexually with somebody else?
So the only place where I have heard where that shows up is actually if he has kind of played the field more. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of somebody that I know who was fairly young, and she was dating a guy 10 years her elder, and he was a player, and he definitely was with a lot of women, and she had a lot of insecurity about how many partners he had been with and his level of sort of competence and skill.
For her own physical safety?
For her own... Well, surprisingly, her youth, there are plenty of women that do get concerned about that. But for her, it wasn't. For her, she was just simply sexually insecure.
Okay.
So for her, it actually did come down to more what you're kind of pointing might be a male role, which is like, can she perform? Can she be sexually whatever alive enough for him to catch his interest?
Okay.
So for her, that was true. And I do think that if there is a commonality among women, what I hear is more of a complaint than anything is the men are so focused on their performance. They want to be the ones that perform the best or the most or to have their fancy. And the women tend to roll their eyes at that.
All the performative
stuff.
Yeah.
Like the men have to be the best. And they're like, oh, Jesus, really? You're going to go
Just
here again? Like you need to beat your chest some more? Like there's a little bit of that.
Right.
And so that can create, it's like, it's almost like he's wanting like, come meet me here. And she's like, oh, seriously? I have no energy for this. This doesn't matter. Okay. So that would be something that's consistent among the people that I talk to.
Like, so if I hear you correctly, the man is wanting to be performative and like, look, I'm a good lover, and she doesn't really care. Like where he's striving to be as a lover is not really about creating more intimacy and connection with her. It's more, look at me. Check
out how great I am. And also compared to your other relationships, like I want to know how I match up to them. So that's where the drag is with the women.
So let's dig into that. So I appreciate that. It's not necessarily limited to women do this and men do that, because I think that there's a spectrum there, and I can see I can see it going both ways. Obviously,
yeah.
I think it's just a great, we're apes in clothes, and there's a huge desire to compete and compare, and we're just going to do that. Mm-hmm. And there's so many reasons why we do that. And you can go watch BBC World or BBC Nature and learn all about that stuff. But I mean, there we are. I mean, there's just a huge insecurity there to know our place in the hierarchy and understand that, and that we're going to be pulled in that direction. But whether we have to succumb to that or be dragged into that is a whole other thing. So it's great to just have compassion that there's not necessarily anything wrong to understand that why do we have to compete? Why do we have to compare? Like it's in our wiring. Yeah. It's just a matter of how much are we going to allow ourselves to be dragged down or dragged around by that. I just find it's a lot easier. Okay, we do that. We're wired to do that.
Yeah. I think that there's to some degree, like if we're talking about jealousy specifically, jealousy has a lot to do, I think, with sort of territory and ownership too. Yeah. and
mine, like wanting ownership.
you're mine. And so that's a little bit of that. It may be the same coin. I haven't thought this through very much, but like there's that seems a little bit different than insecurity, or it's a reaction to, kind of like we talk about anger can be a reaction to hurt or something we care deeply about. Like is the whole being, territorial and ownership, like how wanting ownership, is that a reaction to insecurity?
Well, I think the insecurity exists. We're vulnerable in relationship. I think about this thing that happens kind of in these rom-coms where it's like the girl's with the guy, it doesn't work out, so she goes with this other guy, and they're going to get married. But then whatever happens, and the guy A shows up again, and it kind of sinks the engagement. Like nobody wants to be that chump.
The plan B.
Yeah, nobody wants to know that they were plan B or plan C. And I think a lot of this insecurity can be wanting to know, is there a threat? Is there someone else out there that you would rather be with? And I think it's easy for us to reduce some of it to sexual performance.
Yeah. And I do think it does come down to that. Like that because when you asked me that question that day on the walk, when you were like, well, what if I told you that, some ex was the best emotional connection I've ever had. And then that's where I was like, oh, hell no. And then you were like, okay, well, what if, so you were like, so you can see what if if also you told me, or I found out, or that you, sexually speaking, that you had a partner that was just worlds better. Like what you were talking about with your client, the tantric master, right? Like how hard that hits that "am I enough" button, and how that does bring the past into the present with the insecurities and am I plan A or plan B or
right. If there's someone you would rather be with other than me, this person is still out there. Right. They could wake up this morning and decide they want to be with you again, and you'd be ready to go. You'd rather be with that person. On a weird level, our minds could probably reduce it to sex. Like, oh, this is where my partner would be. This is where she enjoyed herself most, was with this person. And she might, it's really more complex than that. She might enjoy sex with that person more, but feel more emotionally intimate with this other person. And, that's a whole other conversation. But I think that's a big part of the insecurity, is wondering, where am I vulnerable? Who else is out
and I
there?
imagine that if there is any kind of distance in the relationship, if there isn't a whole lot of intimacy in other ways, like if I'm with, if you don't feel close to me and I'm not sharing something that has you feel close to me, it doesn't have to be about the past, but you might fill in the blanks. You might start projecting. So for example, like if we don't have that much sex that often, if I'm not really that interested in sex, and I don't say why, or I don't know why, but it just doesn't seem to be a thing, then I can see how that might create a space for you to want to fill in, like, well, maybe she doesn't like my sex, the way I'm sexual with her. Maybe she doesn't like this, or I can't give her pleasure or whatever. Maybe who did.
Right.
So I can see how there could be lots of inroads to these past kind of inquiries.
Yeah. I remember when we first started dating, and I moved out to Colorado, and you would introduce me to all these great people, all these great guys too.
Oh, yeah, you told me that.
And they was just like, I didn't know. Does it like, we've been friends for a long time. The part of me is like, well, have they had sex? Like, just wondering. And there was always a sense of like, gosh, who am I meeting here? And what's the extent of this connection and this warmth and this engagement? Like, I love this person. And I was like, I wonder if it was flipped. Like you came into my world and I was like, you got to meet this girl and you got to meet this girl. And these people are wonderful people. And you're just wondering like, well, has he had sex with all of them? Like it's just kind of a weird.
It's interesting. I never hadn't thought of. It never occurred to me when you told me that. And
I would say if for someone who's already dealing with some insecurity just in the world, like kind of am I enough stuff, then this becomes a real hotbed for am I enough. and like just kind of find any place to create a pissing match and wonder where I measure up. And well, great, I need to now compete with all of these other people that she's been with.
I mean, that's what happened with that client that I was telling you about, where he was kind of obsessive about it, like perseverating. It wasn't about them and their partnership in the moment. It didn't have anything to do with that. He just like went down this huge wormhole.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's where our insecurity can get the best of us and actually get into the present and ruin something because we're stuck in another place and we miss what's happening right here and right now.
Absolutely.
And there's also this huge thing of, you'd have to speak to this more, but I mean, just culturally, there's a shame for women to have previous partners and be a slut if they do this, have a sex life. It seems to be less in younger, when I talk to younger women, they seem to be a lot more
certainly
relaxed.
In my lifetime growing up. I mean, I had both prude shaming and slut shaming in the same year. It was like just whatever week, depending on who was wanting to do it, dish it out, Yeah.
But I think all of this kind of from the religious aspect of everything, it kind of comes back to this deeply insecure male ego, which is like your property, for one, and number two, you need to be pristine. You need to not have any other. I can be I have to be the only person that has ever been inside of you. And
unfortunately, that's quite literally how it was for years. I mean, hundreds of years. The women actually were property.
Yeah.
Thousands of years, they were actually property, and the as far as I know, the church was the religious sort of institutions were the ones that started to create this whole Madonna, like you have to be virginous and pure. But it might have been before that.
Oh, it goes. I think it's farther back than that. Like this idea that I own my partner, nobody else can have been with her, and there's this kind of pristine thing about her. It creates this Madonna thing, but then also this desire for the whore, the Madonna whore complex, they call it. So there's this desire for the pristine virgin.
Very much.
That's my partner, and then there's the woman I have sex with, which is. I was trying to think about how we could help the question, the guy who wrote the question, and appreciating where he was, and just recognizing that if he goes into this performative state, and now he's trying to posture, he's going to damage the relationship. He's going to weaken the relationship, right?
Yeah.
If he just wants to be a better lover, then that's something you guys can talk. That would be co-created.
Absolutely. And it doesn't actually have to do with her past necessarily at all.
Right. It's about being in the present. But it's also not, on the flip side, not ignoring that there is a past and not ignoring that he might have some insecurities or just curiosities.
And then and that's something I think, to help him out, to help.
And same with her, by the way.
But to suss out what is coming from where. That's the thing that whenever you ask me about my past, that's where my bloodhound nose goes. I'm like, where is this coming from? What's really going on here? What's this really about? Because it doesn't fucking matter to me. So what is the thing that's mattering to you when you're asking? So if it's genuine curiosity, hey, that's cool. That's an opportunity for more intimacy, getting to know each other, or even discovering potential places of like, oh yeah, this was really great. And then to be able to hold that curiosity over in insecurity, and to be able to say, oh, is that something you might want more of here? Is there something that maybe you never got to explore that you might want to explore? Or maybe there was something that you got a taste of in your past that you would like to circle back to. I think that creates great opportunity. But if you're coming at it from a place of, where are you coming from? Are you coming from a seat of insecurity? Because then it's about you. You actually it doesn't matter what your partner says because you're all up in your own shit anyway. Right. So it doesn't even matter. It really doesn't matter what your partner says at that point.
I think the big takeaway here is learning to self-soothe and take care of yourself, but not try to get it from your partner. It's okay to share that you've been impacted, but you don't have to get back to security through your partner.
Yeah.
And this, in a needy way. This is a very subtle conversation, but I think that there's ways of like I can take care of myself. And on the flip side, it's not about walling oneself off and being like, I don't need her, I'm fine.
Yeah, totally.
There's a composure here of I've been impacted, I'm fine, I'm going to be fine, But what I'm also like, the thing to underline is the more that I try to get my worth and my enoughness and my okayness through you, now I am damaging the relationship. Yes. And now we're kind of going into the thing that you were worried about to begin with,
That's
which
right.
is, I'm turning into that little bitch.
Yeah.
And and she is now thinking about her past lovers who didn't do this, who didn't pull this shit.
mean, and there's an interesting, you may or may not want to keep this, but this is a pertinent conversation for people that are getting savvy in therapy or through sort of being in more psychological kind of speak that is more open in our culture today. People are more open to talking about trauma and therapeutic concepts and stuff. And there's a concept out there that has been really big in the therapeutic movement in the last, let's say, 5-10 years, which is called co-regulation. Okay. And it's an attachment concept. It's like if when we partner or when we bond, when we can create an intimacy to a certain degree, if we're somehow not regulated, just being with another person who's willing to really truly see and be with us and be present with us can help settle our system. It helps us settle and feel good. That, and in the therapeutic world, that's a good thing. Co-regulation is a good thing for pair bonds, all that sort of attachment is a good thing, right? For security, creating security. However, what has been happening lately is, and this is what happened with this client that I told you about, was that this guy that ended up slut shaming her all over the place, he was a total mess. But he was using that terminology, saying, I need to co-regulate, like I need co-regulation right now. I need this from you. Like, you're supposed to do this with me.
You're supposed to help me
because
feel better.
you're my partner.
Right.
We're supposed to co-regulate. And she was like, slow the fuck down. Like, slow your roll, bro. Like, this is not what co-regulation is. This is not what it's about or what it's for. And this isn't because because of all these other subtle things that are happening that he could not see, but she was sniffing it and touching it all over the place in her world. You know, so there's an interesting place. It's like, you're right, it's nuanced, but I think it's valuable to name that. Well, that's kind of what I was saying around, like, if you were trying to ground through me, like, where are you coming from? What's the seat you're coming from? Are you coming from genuine curiosity? Do you really want to know about me? Is this really to benefit us? Or is this really
about how am I?
Or is it really about something going on over there with you?
In?
And what do you need for yourself to feel better about yourself?
I like that. Like, is this really my curiosity about her? Or is this really about me needing to know, am I okay in her world?
Yeah.
And that's where I think, just in a real simple way, is like, what could I do to just come back and feel stronger for myself? Not in a performative way. Let me go buy a truck and and a gun, or to just come back and, like, what has me feel strong and more grounded in myself. Yeah. And then come back to what strengthens our relationship. And then I might just be curious about what happened in your past. Like, when did you go to Disney World? And when did you, what were your partners like? But it's
Disney
not
World,
about...
what were my partners in Disney? Was it, and then that would lead to, like, was this, what is it called when people like to have sex in costumes, in the animal costumes?
Cosplay.
No, I think there's another word for it. What if they're like, I'm thinking of bestiality, but that's not it.
It's not bestiality.
It's definitely not it. There's a word for, like, if you want to go fuck Mickey Mouse. Somebody dressed up like Mickey Mouse. I can't remember the name. Anyway, that could lead to that kind of questioning.
Is that something?
When were you at Disney and who were your sexual partners at Disney?
So I'm coming from genuine curiosity. Do you want to fuck Mickey Mouse?
I never wanted to fuck Mickey Mouse.
But now you're thinking about it.
I'm not thinking about fucking Mickey Mouse. I swear that I'm not fucking about.
I think the
thinking about fucking Mickey.
I think the voice would throw me off. The little. That's it. Take it. Like, what if he was like? What if he's like? Take it, bitch. Like he was.
What if he's a receiver? What if he wanted to?
Oh, yeah, give it to me.
Give it to me good. That's what was really going on between Mickey and Minnie.
He's like a tantric guy.
It was like a dom. Minnie was the dom. And or he was the sub.
He's like a really tantric guy. He's like, fuck me open to God. All right. I think
That's going to really help. What's his name? With the long face.
Ryan Gosling. Not the Ryan Gosling, but thanks.
Do you think this Ryan Gosling has a long face like that?
The thing I want to understand is it's a subtle thing, and it comes back to insecurity, and it's not really about the sexual partners. It's really about feeling vulnerable, and then kind of also our wiring to compete and compare, and watch out that you don't get swept up in that stuff. But also just come back to what if there is a genuine concern, to learn to bring that and not make it about the sexual partners, and then if there is a curiosity about the past, bringing that genuine curiosity, you can do that. She might have shame, or your partner might not want to talk about it. That's another thing because of her time at amusement parks. So,
and because of why?
All the time she spent at amusement parks with guys.
Yeah, I don't know. This sounds like you're wrapping it up. So.
I'm trying to. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe I've never wanted to go to Disney, but I kind of do now.
Now you do.
Yeah. Just us.
There's a name for it. I got to look up that name.
All right.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.